And there we are. All right. Good morning, everyone. By everyone, I mean no one. No, actually, I think York is out there again. So here we are. I've been doing this now 4 days in a row. Um, Having second thoughts, to be honest. It is late. Sometimes I do get to bed before midnight, but I'm also getting stuff done, and that's the whole point of this. Um, kind of like I know there's a 5 a.m. writers club. And I'm thinking there should be a night owls fire writers club, right? Where you people who have to stay up late to get their writing done, kind of like hang out, support each other, all that kind of stuff. Um, so yesterday we finished reading in the Garden of End Times by Jody J. Sperling, and tonight I'm going to read the first part of a story I started working on called Leap. Um, as you know, this year was a leap year. We had a February 29th. And I always thought it'd be kind of cool if people who were born on February 29th had some sort of bonus, a special power or something like that. So what I'm going to do here is I have a story idea based on that. Um, I'm not going to tell you the premise. I kind of did last time, but I'm just going to read the first part of the story here. Let me see if I can even share this here. Yep, there he is. Okay. Um, where is it? Okay, here it is. There we go. All right, so this is the story I've been working on. It's called Leap. And so I'm going to read the first, I guess it's going to be like the first half, two thirds, uh, until I get to the point where I start like not liking it anymore. And this is a problem I have, I think, with almost everything I write, books and stories, where I start off great and then I get to a point where it's like, oh, how am I going to end this? Not only how am I going to end this, but sometimes, is this really worth it? Well, I think it is. I think I have some ideas here on how to what direction to take this story. So I'm going to just work through those tonight and see if I can't come up with this because I think this is a story worth doing, and I'm not going to wait another 4 years to tell it. I'm going to do it this year. And so I'm going to see if I can't get this done. And we've got a holiday weekend coming up. So I'm trying to get ahead on these episodes here. I try to do a new story every week, but it's hard. So you'll see some weeks go by where I don't put a new story up, or I repeat a story from the past. I have been pretty successful at like doing my book segments every week, but I am running out of those too. So I've got to get my other book, The 10th Ride, done soon, so I can record that and start cycling through that over the next few months. Um, maybe we'll talk about the 10th ride later. It's a novel. It's finished, but it needs one more draft, and it needs to be, I think, tightened up, and it also needs a couple of extra chapters, and I'll explain what all that is about. But it's there's another novel I have called The Dead Kids Club. That was the first novel I wrote, and it features a character that I am just absolutely in love with. His name is Eddie Horn, and he's a crime writer. He haunts the courtrooms of Chicago and looks for that one case that he can sort of just sink his teeth into, like Truman Capote's in Cold Blood, and just launch himself into infamy by bringing that story to life in a way that people will never forget. So he's always on the lookout for that. And as I was writing this story, I had occasion for my main character to meet someone who wasn't the police, who was, like, onto what he was doing. And, just to give you the quick overview, the rundown, the quick pitch for the Dead Kids Club, uh, 2 parents lose a child to a drunk driver. He gets away with it. He manages to skate on the whole thing in court, and they are absolutely devastated. Not only have they lost a son, but there's no justice to be had for it. So they decide that they're gonna get their own justice. Not well, not justice, revenge, and they're gonna kill him. And they plan the murder, and they use a support group for parents who have lost their children as sort of a cover to hide their tracks, to sort of misdirect people in thinking that they're trying to deal with their grief rather than actually getting vengeance. And, turns out that this guy is actually the son of one of the city's most notorious mobsters, so killing him has consequences. They do it, they get away with it, and then they realize that there's other parents in their group who are in a similar situation where they lost their children, the child's killer got away with it, there was no justice, they've got that empty feeling on top of another empty feeling, and so they start killing other child killers, and one more, and so forth. So, they literally become serial killers. They kinda go Dexter on all these child killers. Um, and, really, really proud of this book. It's what I call an everyman thriller about, ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, right? There's no it reminds me a little bit of, Bruce Willis's version of, what was that movie where his daughter got killed and he went vigilante? Um, oh god, I'm forgetting the name of the movie. Charles Bronson did the first version. Oh, well, anyway, it'll come to me and I'll just shout it out in the middle of the podcast. Um, kind of like that, where no superpowers. It's not a super spy thriller. It's not a super cop thriller. It's not uh, a thriller in the sense that there's some mastermind criminal. It is just ordinary people trying to deal with an extraordinary circumstance and having everything just crash down on them. So, uh, in the course of that, they meet this crime reporter who hears about their story. He's been working on a book about the mob and is very familiar with the characters, and he actually becomes friends with that. So, yeah, thank you. I hope you'll listen to it. It's actually you can listen to the whole book on the podcast. It's called The Dead Kids Club. Just look for the episode to go back about a year and a half or two. And so, in that, tell about this character Eddie Horn. He decides, well, he doesn't decide. He meets the husband and the wife, becomes friends with the husband, and it's the irony is that here he is, a guy looking for the next in cold blood, looking for a case where he is the one who's got the inside scoop, where he can bring it to life. And the guy is literally sitting across from him at a diner that they hang out at, and he has no idea. And so, had this character. The cool thing about him is he's a luddite. A luddite is someone who kind of shuns technology. And in the 21st century, that's pretty difficult to do, but no cell phone, right? No computer. He writes on an old typewriter. The only nod to technology that he has are an answering machine and a fax machine. So he's got a blog, which is kind of a challenge, but he's got a computer guy, actually a gal named Geo, who helps him out. And whenever he wants to write a blog, he types it up, faxes it to a phone number, and she's got it set up so that it will read the text from the typed pages, post it on his blog, and he doesn't have to deal with a computer at all. He's kind of like, okay, I'll fax it in. That's as far as he's willing to advance in the technology of the day. Um, and then whenever he gets emails, they also get sent to him by faxes as well. So that's his communication with the world. And so Eddie becomes friends. He becomes so involved in this case that he really doesn't, know how deep he's actually in until it ends. And at the end, he still doesn't know what the whole story is. There's another layer on top of that. So he kind of misses his chance. He's always like on the edge of getting that big story, but not quite getting close enough. And so I resurrected him again in the 10th ride, and made him a little bit bigger part of the story. And I've got a third story that he's going to be involved with called The Salvage Code. And then I've also got a story that is just his, where he is the main character. That's going to be part of another series. And the first book in that is called Eddie Kills His Wife. And I'm not going to say anything else about that. It's one of those novels that I think is going to be one that I try to take mainstream. You know, um, we'll talk about independent publishing someday, but I do publish my books independently. I've got a boutique press that my old writing partner Owen Rudnick and I have formed to publish our books, Nifney Press, and so I publish all my books under that. Although I say all my books, but I just put out a series of 15 very short books um, of stories from the podcast, each of with a different genre. And each one of those books is three stories, about 50 pages long, give or take. And so each one of those books is put out by Bedtime Stories Studios. So if you don't know, my um, URL for my website is bedtimestories.studio. Uh, just I wanted to have like a different, I didn't want to do a .com. I wanted to do something that would be more memorable. And bedtimestories.studio, I think, kind of encompasses that. It allows me to do audio productions in the context of a studio, and then hopefully maybe go to video at some point. But that's the goal there. Anyway, um, all that to say, what was I saying? I was saying that how does this go back to the story leap? I got off track again. I think the fun thing about doing this is my mind just kind of wanders, and that's one of the things that I was hoping to unlock with this process is just like letting my mind go, opening it up, talking out loud. This is whenever I'm driving somewhere or on a walk, I find myself doing this where I'm talking to myself, I'm working through a story or I'm working through an idea of doing a nightly podcast or something like that. And I just kind of, it opens up my brain. And here we are. Um, so why was I, how did I connect this up? Anyway, I don't know how I was connecting this to this story. So I've got the story, Leap, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to read to you the beginning of it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit once I get to the point where I feel like it's going off the tracks, and sort of see if I can see if one of the ideas I have for the ending may work out. All right, here we go. So this is a first person story. Well, I hear something. You guys hear that rumbling? I don't know if it's thunder or if a neighbor across the alley is starting up his motorcycle. I hope it's not too much of a distraction. I don't even know if you can hear it. People say, I listen to podcasts, they go, "Oh, sorry about the train in the background." I go, "What train? I can't hear any train." All right, here we go. Leap. You know how people claim to be one in a million? Well, I am, To a mathematical certainty, 1 in 1,641. How do I come by this peculiar distinction, you ask? It's my birthday. I was born on February 29th. Yes, that's right. I was born on leap day during a leap year, that once in every 4 years event that grants us an extra day appended to the shortest month. What is what is going on here? Why is something is chiming in the background? Turn this off. All right. The question I get asked the most is, does that mean you're only one fourth as old as you're supposed to be? No, of course not. My family celebrates my off year birthdays on the 28th, but other 29ers, as we call ourselves, prefer March 1st. There are actually official gatherings of 29ers every 4 years around the world, including one in my own relatively small city. That's where I met Adam Merriweather. The event itself was rather uninspired. Many of the 29ers bring dates and spouses, so it wasn't exclusive. There were prizes for the oldest celebrants, recognition of twins, and even a married couple who shared the unusual birthday. Dinner was a rather uninspired buffet, and there was, of course, a large birthday cake. Okay, so here's another reason why I love reading this loud because I used the word uninspired twice in a row. And to my ear, that sounds wrong. Sometimes a repeated word, brings emphasis to it, but here it feels lazy. So dinner was a rather not uninspired buffet, but ordinary. We'll just do ordinary, ordinary. All right, let me try that again. Dinner was a rather ordinary buffet, and there was, of course, a large birthday cake. A few enterprising people set up tables selling merchandise. Everything's finer when you're a 29er. T-shirts, mugs, and hats. I spent most of my time at the cash bar. I noticed Adam staring at me from across the room. He was sitting at one of the tables, stuffing himself with bland pasta and overcooked chicken. He wore a hat inviting anyone who cared to read it to take a leap with me. He looked straight at me, then raised his plastic cup of watered down punch and toasted me. I raised my watered down gin and tonic and returned it. So here, the watered down I like because it's like implying that it's a really cheap event. So the repetition here is a good repetition. It just, I may be kind of like picky about this, but this is one of the things that when I'm writing a story and I'm reading it out loud, I notice repeated words very easily. And in this case here, I like it. So raised his plastic cup of watered down punch and toasted me. I raised my watered down gin and tonic and returned it. Once we each had a sip of our respective libations, he stood up, abandoning his plate of reheated food, and wove his way through the scattered attendees until he reached the bar. Jack and Coke, he told the bartender, fishing a $10 bill from his wallet. While his drink was being mixed, he turned to me, extending a hand. Adam Merriweather, he said. I shook it. Paul Young, I replied. 2000? He guessed. That obvious? He shrugged in response. 92? I asked, judging him to be around 30. He smiled. Way off. I was born February 29th, 1972. I laughed. He pulled out a driver's license from his wallet and showed it to me. It was his picture, and next to it the birth date was 02/29/1972. Nice fake, I said. He shook his head. Nope. You're 54 years old? Nope. I don't understand. Adam smiled. I'm a leaper. Yeah, we all are. That's the whole point of this party. He shook his head. No, not a 29er. A leaper. What's the difference? My fellow birthday celebrant returned his license to his wallet, then to his pocket. No, he returned his license to his wallet and then his pocket. He looked about, making sure we weren't being overheard. He leaned toward me and, in a low voice, said, I can skip through time. Skip through time? I asked, louder than I meant to. Shh, he warned. He scanned the surrounding partiers to make sure no one had taken undue notice. It's not something I share with just anyone, but I saw you standing here completely bored, wondering if this was all there was to it. You read my mind, I told him, and I'm telling you there is something more. Skipping through time? I asked. Yes, we call it leaping. We? There are a small group of us who have mastered this gift, he replied. Gift? It seemed I couldn't have a conversation without it. I mean, this is a great line. I just want to screw up here. Gift? It seemed I couldn't have a conversation with this man without every word coming out of my mouth becoming a question. A birthday gift, reserved for those 29ers who are disposed to take advantage of it. What are you talking about exactly? I asked, hoping to avoid any more cryptic answers. Let's get out of here, he suggested. I'll show you. Adam requested an Uber, and we rode to a farmhouse some miles outside of town. The driver was irked at the unlikeliness of finding someone seeking a ride in the reverse direction, but Meriwether's generous tip seemed to assuage some of his anger. This is where you live? I asked. No, I'm sorry, I did the wrong voices there. This is where you live? I asked. No, this is where I leap. Again with the cryptic answers. He noticed my growing impatience and explained further. This property is completely paid for, and the taxes and utilities are automatically deducted from a bank account managed by a lawyer who takes care of my affairs. Okay, I said, still not getting any closer to understanding what he was trying to get at. The nearest neighbor is a quarter of a mile away, and I own the surrounding 500 acres. I leased it to neighboring farmers. I lease it to neighboring farmers. The point is, things out here change very slowly. This house has been standing in this spot for 100 years and will probably be here for 100 more. But I'm most concerned about the next four. Why is that? Because I need it to be here until I get back. Back from where? Where are you going? The future. I laughed. We're all going toward the future. That's how time works. Yeah, but we have the ability to leap forward. Skip through time? I asked. Excuse me. Exactly. Adam must have sensed my skepticism. Come on inside. I'll explain everything. He checked his watch. But we have to hurry. It's almost time. Time for what? He didn't answer. Instead, he unlocked the front door and welcomed me inside. I wasn't getting any serial killer vibes from my new friend, so I entered the house. Despite its quaint and rustic exterior, the inside had a very modern feel. From the furniture to the state-of-the-art entertainment center in the living room. From the state-of-the-art entertainment center in the living room. Meriwether continued walking toward the kitchen. I followed. This room, too, had a decidedly contemporary feel. Gleaming stainless steel appliances were surrounded by gleaming white cabinetry. Adam motioned for me to take a seat at the kitchen table. You're familiar with the history of leap year, I assume? Of course. Every 29er had a natural curiosity about the evolution of their unusual birthday. Established by Julius Caesar in 45 BC, then refined by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 to exclude centuries divisible by 400. Yeah, that's what the books say. Are they wrong? Are you familiar with the calendar change enacted by the English Parliament in 1750? Of course. That's when they officially adopted the Gregorian calendar and moved the official start of the year to January 1st, and removed 11 days from September in 1752, a leap year. So, this wasn't arbitrary. It was driven by an unnamed astronomer who had a significant influence on King George II. There are those who say that this advisor wanted the change so that his adjusted birthday would become February 29th. The whole thing sounds arbitrary. We could just as easily celebrate October 13th as the new year and have leap day on June 31st. Meriwether nodded. But we don't. It's February 29th. And if you were born on that day and you know the secret of leaping, you can skip ahead 4 years on your birthday at the precise time of your birth, give or take a few minutes. You just pop 4 years into the future? I asked, incredulous. Yes. Why would you want to do that? For most leapers, it's the thrill of trying to adapt to a world that has passed you by. The smart ones make use of compound interest and, more recently, Bitcoin to arrive at a time when their net worth has significantly appreciated. Aren't people suspicious that you disappeared for 4 years? Well, most of us have already left behind. Okay, I guess it was. Most of us have already left behind the people who would care, and we avoid making any attachments that could complicate things. It's as simple as telling anyone who might take notice that you're moving out of state to another country. And then what? And then you enjoy the next 4 years, living off the fruits of your investments. It adds up fast when you don't have any living expenses for 4 years. Once you have a safe house like this established, it's just a matter of making sure you have enough left over to fund your next leap. I remain skeptical. What is this? Some sort of scam? Are you selling timeshares? Term life policies? Adam shook his head. It's nothing like that. I'm merely proposing a mutually benefit arrangement. You were born at night, right? 10:45 p.m., I answered. 6:07 p.m. for me, he said. Why is that important? When I return, I'll be able to guide you to your first leap. Oh, that's nice of you. He smiled. I was skeptical at first, too. You see, I had a partner. We alternated leaps so that at least one of us was around to look after the affairs of the other, just in case. He passed away during my last leap. Suddenly, everything became clear to me. And you're looking for a new time skipping buddy. His smile grew broader. I knew I picked the right guy. There's just one problem, I told him. What's that? I don't believe you. This whole thing is ridiculous. Leap year is an artificial construct. There's nothing special about this day. It's not an equinox or solstice. It doesn't align with any other celestial events. Why would 29ers be able to leap, but no one else? Meriwether shrugged. You have to ask King George's astronomer, or Pope Gregory, or Julius Caesar. Perhaps it's something to do with that fractional difference between the period it takes the Earth to rotate on its axis versus the time to revolve around the sun. Maybe on this specific day, there is some cosmic circumstance that opens a window that we can utilize. I expressed an enormous amount of skepticism. Right. At the exact time of our birth, give or take a few minutes. I can't pretend to know the whys, but I can show you how to do it yourself if you're interested. I paused, giving away the fact that I was indeed intrigued by the possibility of skipping through time, extending my life by decades simply by leaping forward every 4 years. I don't like that. Simply by leaping ahead every 4 years. Okay? You don't have to make up your mind tonight. You have 1,641 days to think it over. Just meet me here next leap year and give me your answer. And if you're inclined to take me up on my offer, make sure your affairs are in order. Sell everything you own, put it into Bitcoin and gold. Where will I live? When you're nearing the time, you'll stay here. He slid a key across the table. There's a caretaker, but he's been instructed that you. Uh, oh, but he's been instructed that someone may take up residence. That was a typo here. Someone may take up residence. Okay. An alarm went off on the watch Adam wore on his left wrist. He tapped a button to silence it. Like I said, you have 4 years to think it over. I have things set up so I can get by without a partner, but I feel more secure knowing there's someone out there who knows the truth. By the time you make your first leap, you'll have an. Hang on a second. By the time you make your first leap, you'll have enough to fund a rather comfortable life in the future. You're not afraid that I'll steal everything from you. He shook his head. I'm what you call diversified. I have accounts and digital wallets, safe deposit boxes loaded with gold all over the world. Besides, what's the point? You have everything to gain by joining me. Like I said, think it over. I don't like that. We'll take that sentence out. Meriwether went to the fridge, pulled out an apple. He handed it to me. Take a bite, he instructed. What? Take a bite out of the apple. A nice big clean one. Why? You'll see. I did what I was told. Now, let me change that. I'm going to add a trust me in there. Trust me. You'll see. Why? Trust me. You'll see. I did what I was told, leaving a round divot in the fruit, with jagged edges marking the shape of my teeth. Adam inspected it. Perfect. He slipped the apple into his jacket pocket, then returned to the fridge and removed a cupcake with a single candle in it, which he set on the kitchen table. From another pocket, he pulled out a lighter and lit the candle. No need to sing, he said. He held up his watch and just looked at it, waiting. I checked the time on my own watch. 6:06 p.m. He swiped a finger through the frosting of the cupcake and tasted it, leaving a morsel on the corner of his mouth. 5, 4, 3, 2, he said aloud. At the moment when he would have reached 0, he looked me straight in the eyes, blew out the candle, and disappeared. All right, so that's the beginning, and that's the part I think where it starts to go off the rails a little bit in this next part here. I think I'll read a couple more paragraphs, but I really love the premise of this. Let me catch up on the comments here. Let's see, we got do. Regards to leap year and other stories, how much of your real life do you include in the stories? Um, quite a lot. Um, the Dead Kids Club, that I just told you about that premise, that was actually a dream I had about my own son. Me and my ex-wife in the dream decided we were gonna kill the killer of our son, and, man, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was real for so long. Not I mean, for hours, minutes on hours, it felt like. I woke up just absolutely convinced that it had happened, and, it took me a while to realize that it hadn't, and, so that one has got a lot of personal stuff in it for me. Um, and then the next story, the 10th ride, for a short time, I was actually driving Uber to make a little extra money, and, that inspired that story. So it was a lot of my true adventures I had as an Uber driver incorporated into that novel. But, yeah, a lot of the characters, uh, do reflect part of me, and I think that's true for any writer. I'm guessing you do the same, York. I enjoy the time traveling aspect of the story. Yeah, me too. I love time travel. I've got a lot of time travel stories. Is some of the historical elements in leap years true? Yes, all of it is. The whole history, the background of leap year, researched that, figured that out. There was an astronomer who worked for King George II who convinced him to change the calendar. Um, although, the reasons for it obviously made up. I just kind of filled in that gap. But in this particular case, let me think. Whenever I do a first person story, I do feel like it was if I imagine myself in that position. So it is me reacting, uh, the character reflecting how I would react in that situation. And you'll discover too in the ending I have in mind here is even more personal to me. Um, So, well, let me go on and we'll talk about it and I'll explain what I mean by that. All right. In the intervening 4 years, I did as much research on Adam Merriweather as I could. I found out what his hometown was, where he went to school, where he had worked. There was surprisingly little about him. When I visited the high school he claimed to have attended, I looked up the yearbook for 1990, and there was Adam Merriweather, a member of the senior class. He was significantly younger than the man I had met, but not 34 years younger. On February 29th, I attended the quadrennial celebration that. Okay, let me say that again. On February 29th, I attended the quadrennial celebration, then drove out to Adam Merriweather's farmhouse. I hadn't used the key he had uh, I hadn't used the key he had given to me. Okay, missing a word here. I hadn't used the key he had given me in the intervening 4 years, but it still worked. I let myself in, then sat at the kitchen table. It was clear that someone, probably the caretaker, had been there recently. There was fresh food in the fridge, including a cupcake with a single candle in its center. I checked my watch. It was just after 6 o'clock, so I sat down in the chair from which I had witnessed Meriwether's vanishing act and waited. A few minutes later, he popped back into existence. I leaped out of my seat, nearly falling to the floor as I stumbled backwards, tripping over the chair. Although a part of me was prepared for something to happen, it still took me by surprise. "Hello, Paul," he said. "I knew you'd come." He hadn't aged a day, an hour, a minute. There was a small bit of frosting on the corner of his mouth, in the same place it was, in the same place it was when I watched him disappear. His tongue reached out to lick it clean. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an apple. There was a bite taken out of it. He showed it to me. "Remember this?" I nodded. "Take another bite, right next to this one." I didn't challenge him. I simply obeyed. When I looked at the result, the second divot was almost identical to the first. The ragged edges made by the shape of my teeth matched. He removed a phone from his inside pocket. "Oh, darn, I guess 5G is no longer a thing. Can I borrow your phone?" I pulled my Galaxy 25 from my back pocket. It unlocked once it viewed my face, and I handed it to Adam. He glanced at it for a moment, puzzled. I reached out and made a gesture that caused the flexible screen to expand until it was the size of a small tablet. "Web browser?" he asked. The app came to life at the sound of his voice. "Cool." He recited a URL, and the browser instantly opened up the page for him. Well, that was a profitable 4 years. I knew those AI stocks would take off. He handed the phone back to me, and it shrunk down back to a pocketable size. "So are you ready?" "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Well, as you might have guessed, it's not as simple as blowing out a candle. There's a certain state of mind you need to achieve. The candle is just symbolic." He spent the next few hours explaining everything I needed to know to perform a leap. It wasn't that complicated, but it wasn't that obvious either. He and others had created a series of mantras that created the right created. Here's a here's a situation where I used the word created twice in a row. Had created a series of mantras that created the right mental states. Had developed. There we go. So he and the others had developed a series of mantras that created the right mental conditions. And for whatever metaphysical reasons it worked on 29ers, he assured me I shouldn't be any different. The key, the absolutely essential component, is that you believe you can do it. I nodded. "Okay, you're as ready as you're ever going to be." Adam retrieved the cupcake from the fridge and set it in front of me. "I won't be here when you get back. You were born later than I was, but in 8 years we'll have a few hours of overlap to catch up. I'll leave you a packet of things I think you'll need to know, and I'd appreciate it if you do the same for me next time around. Makes it easier." "Sure," I promised. He checked his watch, then lit the candle. 5, 4, 3. I stared at the flame, doing my best to remember all the things I had to hold in my mind at once. to make the leap. Two, one, I heard Adam say. I took a deep breath and blew out the flame. He disappeared. On the table where he had been sitting was an envelope with my name on it, and in front of the chair opposite me, a cupcake, different from the one with the candle I had just extinguished. I opened the envelope and found what looked like a thin frame. I picked it up and it came to life, filling the empty space with an image of Adam Merriweather, smiling at me. He looked slightly older, wrinkles creasing the corners of his eyes, and there were strands of gray in his otherwise dark brown hair. "Hello, Paul." "Adam," I said. "Where are you?" "In the future," he responded. "This is just an AI composite of me. It's been a crazy 4 years." "I guess so." "I took the liberty of looking up your portfolios before I leaped. You did well, my friend. Some of your crypto choices really paid off." "Great. But there's another reason I need to talk to you." "What is it?" He sighed, as if trying to find the right words to use to explain what he wanted to tell me. "A rift has developed among the leapers." "A rift?" I asked. "As you know, we're not the only 29ers who know the secret of leaping. There are others, and some of them have some very specific notions of what we should and shouldn't do with this ability." "Why would they care?" "Well, it's complicated," AI Adam replied. "They are afraid that there are some of us who seek power, who aren't content living long lives in luxury and want to affect the world in ways that only someone who could leap could." "I don't understand." "What you need to know is that you're in danger." "Danger? How? Why?" "They want to kill you." "Me?" "Well, not just you, all leapers who could potentially stand in their way." "I don't want to stand in anyone's way." "It doesn't matter. They think you could." "How do they know about me? How do they even know about me?" This is where it starts to fall apart for me, by the way. Um, I feel like this is going on a little bit longer than it needs to. How do they even know about me? You vanished for 4 years. It's pretty obvious to anyone who pays attention who the leapers in the world are. The point is, they know about this place. Okay, so now this is, I think, where I'm going to stop. Here is my pitch for how to resolve this story. Um, Adam has been on the shit list of the other leapers. He is worried that there is a mysterious leaper called I don't know what he's gonna call some strange name, but they say he's a leaper who has. Am I thinking about this the right way? So there is a no, there's not a leaper. There's a pair of leapers, identical twins, and so one of them leaps while the other one stays behind. So they have continuity of life across the decades that other leapers don't. They can really safeguard. I mean, they've got someone they can absolutely trust 100%, right? And so um, they've got that edge, and no one knows exactly who they are. They're just sort of a rumor at this point. But the rumor is that they are are the ones who are seeking to accrue and possibly abuse power. Um, they want to parlay their ability to leap and then have an extended life to use that time to perhaps become super wealthy, to perhaps accrue political power, something like that. I haven't worked out the details of that part yet, but the point of it is that there is this identical twins who are after him, and now apparently after Paul. So, um, Adam and Adam's kind of shaky. He's not shaky. He's kind of evasive on why, and Paul's going to kind of like let me start making some notes here. All right, there we go. All right. So Adam, AI Adam is afraid of twin leapers who are after him. Doesn't say why, or is evasive. I think it probably is evasive. And is evasive. Okay, we got that. Okay. Tries to convince Paul that he's in danger as well. Paul appears to fall for it, to believe to believe him. They need to secure their future leaps. So, one of the fears they have as leapers is that the place they leap from is no longer going to be there when they leap back. So, for example, if you live in a house and someone puts up a high rise in that spot while you're gone and you return and there's a wall where you used to be, you will leap into that wall and obviously die. Probably cause some sort of catastrophic explosion of something like that. So that is one. That's one of the things that I got to lay in there too, right? The dangers of leaping. And next thing is going to be that let's see here. So AI Adam helps Paul secure their future jumps. They raise the farmhouse and erect a silo that is actually a vault. So basically, it's going to be like a giant grain silo because it's farmland. But instead of just being a hollow cylinder, it's going to be a hardened concrete vault inside there, so that there's always going to be a secure space that takes up the exact position of the kitchen. So they're going to build it basically around the kitchen, so they'll still have that space. And so when they leap, they will have a place to go to that they can be absolutely sure is secure. And so the um the goal here is to um pretend to set up a different safe house. So they'll buy some other property and pretend to set that up as a safe house. Meanwhile, the silo goes up in kind of an innocuous fashion. Okay, so that happens, and it comes time for Paul's leap, Paul's next leap, and so Paul. This is when they're going to overlap again. This is the 8-year period where they're going to overlap. Comes time for Paul's next leap. Adam returns, and Paul leaps. Okay, so now they've swapped places here, and for Paul, no time passes, right? But it's actually 4 years later. Paul leaps. In the future, he returns. There's no packet from Adam, right? So he's expecting to see the same sort of thing, maybe and whatever the next generation of his AI assistant is going to be and all that kind of stuff. but there's nothing. Uh, he tries to exit, but the door to the vault does not respond to his code. He hears a voice. Oh, no, he doesn't hear a voice. He realizes that he's been tricked by Adam and is going to suffocate in the vault. Okay, so here's the tricky part. So Paul is in there in the vault, and then I need to somehow switch perspectives. So this is, I may have to rewrite this in third person to make this ending work. Although if I keep it in first person, it may work in a different way. Anyway, the perspective is going to shift now, and we see um, Adam outside the silo. He's watching Paul try to unlock the vault door on a video feed. Probably holographic, right? This story's got a decidedly science fiction edge to it. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've got that. So he's doing this, and he smiles. He smiles to himself. Pulls up another screen where he has access to all of Paul's finances. Right? He enters the password to transfer the money to his own accounts, but the password doesn't work. So this is like something that Adam has done in the past. His previous leaping partner didn't just die; he had killed him. Uh, all right, so the password doesn't work. He and then he hears Paul's voice. Did you really think I'd fall for that? You may have to read this in third person. You can always switch it to the third. I've done, yeah, I've had to do that. Actually, the blueberry patch, one of the latest stories on my podcast, I had originally started with a male protagonist, but then when I got to the end and I realized what I wanted my monsters to do, I had to switch it to female, and all the way up to the very end, I was still finding pronouns I hadn't switched over. Um, Another cool fact, just a quick aside, in the paranormal mysteries that I'm writing with Arnold Rudnick and Lloyd Auerbach, we originally envisioned it, or actually Arnold and Lloyd, Paul's again story. Arnold and Lloyd had taken a first draft of this, and they had like envisioned a buddy cop duo. Like we were thinking Brian Dennehy and who's the other guy? The guy from ER. Anyway, it was going to be two guys. But then I came on board and I pitched them the notion of like, hey, what if the parapsychologist is a woman instead of a man? That way we can have some of that love interest stuff, the will they, won't they kind of thing going on. And another dimension to the relationship. And they love that. And we had to swap out all the he's for she's and stuff like that. And the names. All right. So anyway, so yeah, that's an exercise I've done before. But I think I can do it. Oops. Pause. Did you really think I'd fall for that? And Adam realizes who it is. Paul and this man are the twins. So that is the twist at the end. And so basically, what happens is Paul's brother unlocks the vault from the outside. And unlocks the vault from the outside. And I think he's got knockout Adam, perhaps drugs him. So he misses the leap window. Adam wakes up inside the vault, tries to leap, but can't. And then maybe there's an AI of the two brothers who are together again for the first time in, let's say, 16 years. 16 years. I'll figure out the actual situation here. So they get this spend. So like basically, I think that the backstory I was thinking of for the twin leapers is that it was a complete accident. Like, the fourth birthday, one of the brothers just disappeared. They thought he was kidnapped, and then he returned, and then they figured out the other one disappeared, and they kind of figured it out. Or he returned, and 4 years later, then they figured out what happened. Anyway, that's a lot of backstory, though. I mean, I'll probably skip all that backstory. It's just going to be in my head. So they're back together for 16 years. And that's it. I mean, basically, I think I'll be able to come up with some sort of dialogue that will make that, be good to hang out with you again, brother, and that kind of a thing. Uh, Last line's going to be, but what are we going to do about our wife? So reminds me of uh, The Prestige. Probably one of my favorite movies about magic. Um, Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, and Michael Caine is in there too. I was just watching Christian Bale's Batman with Michael Caine. Hugh Jackman isn't in it, but it's like a nice return to those two. Anyway, they yeah the well the if I'm not gonna I'm not gonna give it away in case you haven't seen it, but great movie. So it's similar to that, and then that would be the last line. I think this might work. I'm going to give this a thumbs up. I'm going to give this a try. I'll write this out in the next few days, probably maybe over the weekend, and see if I can't get this ready to record uh, by the holiday here. All right. Well, thank you, York. I think so too. I love having a twist in my stories. I think there's very few stories in my portfolio that don't have some sort of twist or even a double twist at the end. Um, I love stories with endings, you know, that you like when you get to the end of it, you go, I didn't see that coming. That is what I really go for in these stories. And sometimes I do it in a very subtle way. Sometimes I do it in a more obvious way. But I think this is going to be a fun way to do it because I'm setting him up to appear to be a neophyte at this whole thing. And Adam thinks he's conning Paul, but it's actually Paul who's conning Adam because he knows that who he is and what he's doing because his brother told him. So he's got the whole situation already dialed in, and he's been doing it, just as long as the other guy. So I think that'll work. Again, when I get to the ending, I will of course, live read it to you once I get it sorted out, and then I'll record it and do the effects. So here's my goals for the next next week. So I'm going to finish producing in the Garden of Good and Evil. I'm sorry, in the Garden of Good of End Times, not Good and Evil. That's a different movie. In the Garden of End Times. Uh, Almost finished writing Dreams of Her, and I'll record that one this weekend, and then I'll finish writing this one, and I'll record this one. So I'll have 3 stories ready to go. The Dreams of Her, I'm going to predate to today, yesterday. It's Wednesday now. Yesterday, which was Tuesday. So I'll probably do that this weekend and then drop it in there. Then I'll drop um, In the Garden of the End Times on Tuesday, and then I will pre-program Leap for the following Tuesday, and that'll get me through the book fair that I got coming up, because that weekend I'm not going to get any writing done. I'm going to be downtown Chicago and hanging out with Jody and Christopher Talon. I should see if he's a late night writer. I know he's got kids though. He might not be up this late, and he's in a later time zone, so it would be like 1 a.m. for him. He's in Michigan. So anyway, that's the goal for doing this stuff. I'll get these stories produced. It is 1 o'clock. It's time for the yawn, the group yawn. Getting things started here, getting ready to go back to bed. Um, it's weird though, because I tell myself, yeah, I'll just go to bed after this, but it takes me a while to wind down because I'm like probably going to do some more writing and stuff. But hey, York, thanks for hanging out again. I'm looking forward to when we can actually do this together. Um, and love to hear about your process too. And we'll probably do have a big conversation about that as well. All right. So good night, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks.